Good evening, everyone. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, February 20th, 2024. Meeting details and the draft agenda were also posted on our Township website. Please stand to salute the flag.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Here.
Ms. Purvis? Here. Deputy Mayor Sacramandi?
Here.
Mr. Stoller?
Present.
Mayor Romano?
Here.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. May I have a motion to approve the January 29th, 2024 Special Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Reports. Please provide reports on the committees that you are liaison on. Committeeman Stoller, please.
Sure, just very brief, Special Improvement District Restaurant Week, March 17th. Over 20 restaurants signed up. March 17th, please go out and service our local establishments. And then for any business owners, Metropolitan Business Promotions, you have to get that in by next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Cullen. Committeeman Cullen. I'm sorry.
Okay. Also brief, the Finance Committee that Ben and I sit on met again as we continue to push for the budget, trying to work through the schedule of when that will be presented to the public in line with the statutes. The only other committee was that I met with was with the Arboretum, and they're working on a bunch of fundraising events, but more to come on that in the future.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Sacramandi.
Sure. So Mayor Romano and I have been closely following the fair share of legislation that's rapidly making its way through the state legislature. The mayor and I, along with our counterparts on the Livingston Township Committee, met with Assembly members Bagoli and Colazo's Gill to share our concern about the new legislation and suggest changes that we'd like to see. Last night, Mayor Romano and I met with State Senator John McKeon to further express our concerns about the legislation. Our elected representatives listened to our concerns, and our hope is that they will act accordingly to improve the legislation before it's passed. At this point, the legislation has passed the Assembly, it's now being considered by the Senate, and it may very well go back to the Assembly. So I would encourage everyone that has strong feelings about this to get in touch with our Assembly members and our state senator if you want your opinion heard. Thanks.
And we have their contact information right on the table there. Committeewoman Lucas.
Yes, thank you. Two-way circulation on Essex Subcommittee is meeting again next week. And then we hope to have a presentation to the public in March. So stay tuned for that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so before we go any further, just we want to let you all know that we have heard all your concerns regarding affordable housing. And we just wanted to ease some of the tensions in the room. So before we go any further, I'd like to make a motion to revise the agenda and move resolutions 24077, 24078, 24079, and resolution 24080, and ordinance 2662-24 to be considered immediately May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Purvis?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sacramandi?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Yes.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
So are there any comments from the committee in regards to resolution 24-077? May I have a motion to approve 24-077?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
No.
Ms. Purvis?
No.
Deputy Mayor Sacramandi?
No.
Mr. Stoller?
No.
Mayor Romano?
No.
Thank you.
Are there any comments from the committee in regards to resolution 24-078? May I have a motion to approve 24-078?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Prupus.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Yes.
Mayor Romano,
Yes. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to resolution 24-079?
No.
May I have a motion to approve 24-079?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Prupus,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Yes.
Mayor Romano,
Yes. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to resolution 24-080? May I have a motion to approve 24-080?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Prupus,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Yes.
Mayor Romano.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Ordinance 2662-24. Deputy Mayor Sakamandy, you are scheduled to sponsor.
I would like to present an ordinance entitled Ordinance Number 2662-24. Ordinance of the Township of Milburn, County of Essex, repealing Ordinance Number 2640-23, adopting the 9 Main Street redevelopment plan dated June 20th, 2023, in accordance with the local redevelopment and housing law, NJSA 40A 12A-1 ET SEQ. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with the law in the item, and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, March 19th, 2024.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Prupus.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Yes.
Mayor Romano.
Yes. So based on everything that we've just passed, we will not move forward with the 9 Main Street project. Public comment. When invited to speak, to offer your comments, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and whether you are a Milburn resident and/or property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, seeing our meetings are recorded and are readily available to the public. For the convenience of our community, there is a remote option. If you called in and would like to comment, please press *6 now. If you are attending by computer or electronic device, please click the raise hand button and be sure your video is on when you comment. All members of the public wishing to speak will be put into the queue to address the committee. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session. You will be prompted when there is 30 seconds remaining. A reminder that this is not a time for dialogue or debate a matter, and this is a time during our business meeting for the public to offer comments. I will now open the public comment period.
Hi, David Petrucco, I'm a Milburn resident. The last time I talked on this subject, about 2.5 to 3 years ago, I used all 3 minutes. I won't need them all tonight. This has been an incredibly contentious, heated, at times personal battle. It's complicated. It's not easy. But on behalf of everyone here, and I think the residents of this township, I'd like to say thank you. It's so rare in politics. You can see people from different parties and different backgrounds unite on something so important to this neighborhood. And this certainly was the most important topic I've seen in the 12 or 13 years that I've been here. I would just like to state for myself, and I'm sure others will follow, anything I can do, we can do to assist you in this effort going forward. It's not going to go away. It just didn't need to be what we've been battling over for the last 2 to 3 years. So thank you. I pledge my support to you to help us figure that out if that's helpful. And it really, you've been a shining example to all of us of how you come together and figure things out. We figured the first part out. We'll figure the second part out later, but thank you very much.
No one else wishes to speak?
I'm talking about the consent agenda items. I mean, I had nothing, whoa. All I can say is whoa, concerning the July, where I put this start on July 30th, 2021 on a Friday morning, where I was the only citizen that was out there. But as to the consent order, as to the bill list, with all due respect to our municipal attorney, there's a payment for him for duties that he did for the affordable housing. The question is, the money's coming from the trust fund. And one of the things I've been asking since basically July 30th, 2021, how much have we expended on the 9 Main Street project? I think we're entitled to have an accounting as to what we spent. In addition, as to the trust fund that we have, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which is a best practice activity. One of the questions we've been asking, we delayed the adoption of like the surcharge. And the question is, had we adopted it earlier, all the residential demolitions, how much money would be in the trust fund today to fund what we had to do on renovation going forward? As to the professional services, I think we might want to consider what the Board of Education does. Rather than just being Alex and the CFO reviewing the time summaries, I think maybe the Finance Committee members might want to look at it, because there are some things over the last 2 or 3 years I found through Oprah that you need to look at. As to, there's payments to the JIF insure reimbursements. One involves the case that I'm involved, Phil versus Milburn. It was told to us before, once we paid our deductible, there'd be no other payments. So the question is, why are you making an additional payment if we've always made a deductible? And it's also in the police whistleblower harassment case, there is a payment being paid to the JIF insurer. Later on, there's something about reconstituting arts, the flood mitigation, and then there's an ordinance. And this is an issue I had with a prior municipal attorney. And I think the public should know is like, when do we need an ordinance? When do we need a resolution? Appointing people to members of a committee, no one disputes they need a resolution. But if you're going to create what the rules are, the membership of an ordinance, of a committee that usually was disclosed in your administrative code, does that need to be done by ordinance? And again, I'm very happy that the public was heard, that United Residents can affect change.
I'll be brief. My name is Eric Osman, longtime Short Hills resident. I had a different speech in mind for tonight. I want to applaud all of you, including our attorney, Mr. Cantor, but really for putting town ahead of party, for not turning our town into a circus situation like we've seen from other towns, such as Livingston. And we've seen some nasty meetings in Summit as well. And we've seen some nasty meetings here. It takes a lot to dial down ego, to dial down party, and put the town first. And really, I truly, and we all truly appreciate the courage you showed tonight. And I suspect it will help us in our negotiations going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Charlie Bambara, Short Hills resident for 27 years. Honestly, Mayor Romano, you said people didn't approach. I'm overwhelmed. I really am. Never was I more proud to call myself a resident of this town than I am tonight. All of you have really come together, and when I think back to September and I think back to issues and they're all gone now. I mean, you're working together as a team, and I'm loving it. So thank you again.
I concur with, Leah Cruz, Short Hills resident. I concur with Charlie. I almost feel like I want to cry. It feels like we've been heard. So thank you, especially Frank and Ben, for your hard work. And I think it's pretty clear that nobody really objects to affordable housing, and hopefully it can be done in a better way now, maybe including senior housing or a better location. But my question is, this sounds great and I'm really excited, but what happens now? I don't understand. I thought this was court ordered, so can somebody hopefully explain where do we go from here? Thank you.
Fran Faile 40 years in Milburn. It sounds like a sentence, but it's been a wonderful 40, the way I said it. I just also want to go on the record thanking all of you for making a decision that's good for everyone, including people who are low income and come into a wealthy town. I think when I first got up, when I heard about this 9 Main Street, I spoke as a former social worker, that housing projects that are 100% a lower income are doomed to failure. It's been proven, it's in the literature, it's bad for people. They need to be in mixed groups, and then that helps everybody. So thank you for understanding that that needed to be done. And of course, for integrating people into our community in a way that serves everybody and diversifies all of us. That said, the other part of this that's touching me is that back in the olden days, after the dinosaurs, but when I was in school, around 7th grade, we learned about civics. And civics, we learned you're part of a democracy, you can get up and you can speak and people will hear you and you can get things done. And I took that to heart. And I have to say, and she was gonna cry, I'm getting the chills. The fact that I have worked on this, that I've tried so hard to make this happen with a group of people is so gratifying that I just have to thank all of you. So thank you.
Hi, Diane FallEglo, lifelong resident, former Township committee member. First, I want to say it's refreshing that you're all alternating the mayor's message. It's short and to the point, it's very informative. I want to thank Frank for your acknowledgement that the $7.5 million ask for the paper mill had never been publicly discussed. Somehow that got amended off that agenda. I sincerely hope that the paper mill will honor their original contract to continue to pay their monthly rent. And the township will think very clearly before putting a bond out for millions of dollars. I also wonder, Mayor Romano, you can maybe answer this. Will the $1.2 million they have in escrow be released immediately to fix their failing retaining wall? And on that, Mayor Romano, I know you waited a long time to get on the township committee, yet we don't really hear you speak to anything. We don't hear you give any reports. I know you're a liaison. We don't hear you answer any of the people's questions. A lot of people, last meeting, we had 2 hours of public comment. And Mayor Megan's and myself, we used to take like copious notes and we would answer everybody by name because it's mostly the same people who speak. And instead of maybe punting everything to Alex, who does a phenomenal job in town, but he's not elected. So I would think it would be nice if we can start hearing from you and your opinions. Thank you. Oh, and I also agree with everybody. It was great at 4:29 to see the amended agenda email. Thank you.
David Marrow, Milburn resident. I would like to applaud the Township Committee on their actions tonight. You have taken a step of courage in rectifying what was a miscarriage a little over 2.5 years ago. So I thank you all, and I think the town thanks you as well.
Thank you.
Good evening, Renee Paparian, Milburn resident. I also want to thank all of you. There were many doubters during the last election campaign who said what Ben and Frank were going to try to accomplish with their colleagues could not be done, would not be done, and they were not telling the truth. Well, here you go, doubters. It happened, and this was common sense. So thank you. Thank you very much for paying attention and making a hard decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stand with you.
Good evening, everyone, and this is Char Gould from Short Hills. Thank you, everyone, especially the council members, for voting in the best interests of a community, which we all have been tirelessly advocating to become a more inclusive community. So I really thank you all, and I'm here to please urge to include senior care living in affordable housing master plan, incorporating senior living into the plan is very much needed. It's a step toward creating a community that caters to the diverse needs of residents, fostering intergenerational connections, embracing the wisdom and experiences our senior community members can bring. It is, the benefits are manifold, promoting social cohesion into our cultural tapestry, fostering economic growth. It will get an economic boost, enhancing overall well-being, interconnected generations and experience and wisdom, cultural enrichment, volunteerism, and community involvement. It is very much needed that we include seniors in our community and they have a place to call home when they age. It is just not a matter of addressing the needs of an aging population. It is an investment in the overall well-being, diversity, inclusion, and resilience of our Melbourne Short Hills community. It is a commitment to aging in place, ensuring that our seniors can continue to be active contributors to the community they have been a part of for so long. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'm Lauren Nathan, going on 40 years in Melbourne. I don't want to leave without adding my voice in thanks to what everyone else has already said. You can take, I believe, great satisfaction in that you have acted in the best interest of this community. And I know that there were probably many other competing interests that have been lobbying you, and there probably have been pressures on some of you that will never be disclosed. But again, as I said, I don't want to leave without saying thank you for acting in the best interest of this community, and much appreciated and much relieved.
Thank you.
Okay, Ted Kuntz from, been here about almost 40 years. And I also had another speech prepared, which I'm so happy I don't have to give. But I did want to just at the end and just sort of quickly paraphrase Lincoln, who was my favorite president. Gettysburg Address, he said, "The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it will never forget what we do here." So thank you for doing what we did tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Pua Fari. I live on 20 Coleridge Road. I also don't need to have my speech now. I missed this amazing moment, and I think that, I just want to thank you all for thinking of the town and doing what, I think would really is going to be something that bring people together and what's right in terms of for the new populations that will come in, as well as maintaining that balance and support for who lives here. So I think we can carry tradition with innovation, and it can be done gracefully. And I am just so thankful that you all took that into consideration. And I'm excited to see what our township can continue to grow into. I love being here, and I can't wait to be a part of it and see it thrive. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Again, I had Richard Seibert, Melbourne resident. Again, I had a different comment to make. But in closing, with a comment, this new team that is working together with the help of a new attorney, very refreshing, so hopeful for a good future. I will, in my comment, what I wanted to say, but I have to say it. So in 1970, the lottery started. In 1972, Powerball started. In 1976, Megaball started. And the commercials were $1 and a dream. Now it's $2 and a dream if you want to play it. But RPM had the $1 and a dream. They were going to get a landmark piece of land in town, no taxes, pilot program. Let the residents of the town clean it up so they could build something that they could collect rent on, maybe even sell it for $100 million. And I am so glad you busted that bubble tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, this is better than night of paper.
What was that, Fran?
Good evening, Sarah Sherman. I have a question, actually. What was done this evening is not insignificant, and so my question is, what are the consequences and costs of the action taken here this evening? Thank you.
Thank you.
Ed Mazer, longtime resident. I'd like to just change the focus a little bit to going back to the Historic Preservation Commission. There is a lot of unhappiness and suspicion within the township of the actions of the HPC. And what I would urge you to do is to have a special meeting to air out some of these concerns that we've had over the last several months. We've had incorrect information sent to the residents. The residents were also unhappy about their lack of involvement in the Marywood Knollwood HPC proposal. The ordinance that you adopted at the last meeting, there were several incorrect statements made. One member of the Township Committee stated that this only covered complete demolitions. The ordinance expressly states demolition of substantially all or any building or the facade of any building. Activity in this category shall be reviewed according to the criteria and standards and then it cites two ordinances. The planner that you had stated that the residents would be notified if their if their houses were included by certified mail. The ordinance says that notice may be provided by regular mail to the last known address of the owner of record as found in the tax assessor's records. Failure to receive notice shall not relieve the property from compliance with the provisions hereof. So there's concerns here as to what was said and what is actually in there. There's also real concern about the fact that the residents will not be notified of the actions of the HPC when their properties are designated. They're only informed afterwards, and if they disagree, then they can appeal it to the zoning board. Perhaps you should look at giving more input to the residents. 30 years ago, I was chair of the planning board when historic preservation first came up. And the board at that point wanted to get the input of all of the people. We sent letters to everybody in the proposed historic district and to everybody in the homes that were historic outside the district. And we had a very long and must say contentious meeting, but everybody saw the other viewpoints and it gave the planning board in discussing this a lot of information and seeing the
Thank you. I'm sorry.
mutually exclusive.
Your time is up. I'm
infants.
sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else online?
No. My name is Alex Stakinov. I came here several years ago from West.
Can you speak up just a little bit or just?
Hold on.
Thank
My
you.
name is Alex Vakinov. I came here with my family several years ago from Westfield, the best place to live in Union County, because here is much better, much better. Just I did not reside in Middletown when has when he's leaving Bon Jovi and Bruce Springsteen. I came here and I learned this one. I'm building engineer, building 15 years ago the new headquarters of L'Oreal in Berkeley Heights, $380 million, professional building engineer. Now I discover the Governor Murphy order mandatory you to build here several buildings for low-income people. Now, why here? Why not in Westfield, not in Elizabeth, Newark, Irvington, or Camden? There is people are not saved. I learned to there, this is mandatory. Probably you are the mayor, you can resist this one because you can be fired or maybe he will go to the court and can remove it with the power. Don't fulfill his order or resign. How you build this one here down? You overcrowded the city and now you're going in the middle school to build another probably. I want this tonight, I don't know. Are you going to build there for these people? I am not against them, but there is not belong to be residential building. The governor can order to you. Governor, I have registered Democrat, but now I have to change to vote for, not for general primary for Trump, for Republican. This deeply disappoints me. Why you decide this one to build building there? To overcrowded the middle school. The morning time when I came, my grandson, they graduated over there. They are in high school.
I don't mean
For
to
50
cut you
minutes,
off, but you know
for 50 minutes is big traffic. 245 is big traffic. I want to know, are you going to build this residential building over
No.
there or not?
No.
Okay, you
We
resist.
voted it down at
You
the
resist.
beginning of the meeting.
What happened with governor? He can fire you for this one?
We
Because
unanimously
they told me
voted
today
against
this is
No,
mandatory.
it's not
This
happening,
order.
but you can continue with your time.
That I'm coming from this one to know, because
It's
too
not,
many.
we did it
If
at
you
the
want to
beginning of the
build
meeting.
like low income, build to the border of Milburn and Maplewood, there.
We all agree.
Build there, there is violence. Don't come here this. I'm not against these people. You can do this one.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? I will now close the public comment period. The Township Committee will now consider consent agenda resolutions. Oh, I'm sorry. Would anyone like to respond? Deputy Mayor? I'm sorry.
Sure. So I'd like to thank all of you that came out here tonight. It's so refreshing to have speaker after speaker come up and thank us as opposed to criticize. So that's really refreshing. You know, I think what was done tonight was a result of years of the public coming out and taking a position, taking a strong position. And I'm thrilled that my fellow committee members, you know, decided to unanimously reject this this redevelopment agreement. There's some questions as to what comes next. There's going to be a lot of unknowns, and I'll let our attorney talk about that a little bit further. But it's going to be a fight, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to fight. We're here to fight for what's right. Segregated housing, that's wrong for our town. So that's why we voted against it. Giving a blank check to a developer that can just add on fees, that's wrong. That's why we voted against it. So we heard you, and the next few steps may be difficult. They may be scary at times, but trust us that we'll see it through with your guidance. And we will look to build inclusionary housing. We will look to satisfy our obligation in a manner that better comports with the values of our town, and will work for our town in a better way and be more welcoming to those that are supposed to benefit from it. After all, affordable housing should lift up an entire community. We want people of lower socioeconomic status to be able to integrate with people of a higher socioeconomic status and have everyone learn from one another. This 9 Main Street project didn't do that, so we will seek projects that do that in our inclusion. Specifically, for the gentleman that was just up, I think perhaps he may have come late. Just so everyone's clear, all municipalities in the state of New Jersey have an obligation to provide opportunities for affordable housing. It's not just us, so that's something that's shared universally. And we're committed to building the affordable housing that we need to build. But we're gonna do it in a responsible manner. That's all I have for now.
Committee Woman Purpose,
No comments.
Committeeman Stoller,
Sure.
your mic.
First, Sure. First of all, thank you everyone for coming out and supporting the Township Committee. This is truly a team effort. So I'd like to thank the entire committee. We had a lot of team support here. What comes next? You saw history being made here today, so we're not exactly sure what comes next. But we're committed to providing affordable housing. We are not against affordable housing. We're against a project that's not reasonable. And that project on the 9 Main Street on the dump was not reasonable. It boggled the mind in terms of providing a blank check to RPM. I guess $1 in a dream was cast earlier. It was an exclusionary project. It was a project that was going to be built on a contaminated site with no end in sight for the cost of remediating its site. It was a cost that had was burdensome on our school system, did not take into account the traffic study, the police study, et cetera. So it was just not reasonable. This Township Committee as a whole wants to exhibit transparency, professionalism, and competency as the path forward for how this town is run. And that's what we're exhibiting, and that is our marching orders. Just to answer some of the questions that came through, I like to write everything down, as Diane said, and go through them. I don't like to leave any questions unanswered. We will be discussing the paper mill again. That is not off the table. That will be coming back. And trust me, we will be doing the transparent, professional, competent work on that. Mr. Verichev, Alex, we understand your concerns. And as you said, you missed the first part. So I think, we don't know what comes next, but, we put a stop to this problem as it exists right now. And then that's about it. But once again, thank you all for coming out. We appreciate you so much.
Committeeman Cole?
Yeah, I certainly echo what's been said. I thank everybody for their support, but we really don't know what's coming. It's all very nice in this room. We seem to be in agreement. We can be sure that there will be filings from Fair Share Housing and from RPM. At a minimum, I would expect RPM will be looking for recoupment of their legal fees to negotiate the agreement. And from what we've had,
I wouldn't go into exactly what.
yeah, I don't know. That's just a guess. That's my guess. I don't know. I would think, but we don't know. We don't know what the judge is going to do. We've seen her before. It's not going to be the love and support that we just got from this room. So we don't know. We're taking a huge risk here, and we'll see. We'll see what comes. There's just no way to tell. I'm sure there will be stuff filed really pretty quickly.
Mr. McDonald?
Mr.
Cantor?
So good evening, everybody. So the question as to what's next is, and I think the committee, first off, I know this committee showed a lot of courage tonight. I've spoken with all of them, and we've had a lot of conversations. So I appreciate the thanks, but it belongs to this committee and this governing body. They really took a stand, and I just kind of put down on paper what they all wanted for tonight. As to what's next, there's a lot of litigation strategy involved in it. Most of you have attended the court session and have seen the demeanor of the court. But I think what's fair is we have an unmet need of 75 units now that we had in our settlement agreement. I think this committee has gone, and the township has gone above and beyond its due diligence to try to make 9 Main Street work. I think everybody in here has shown its opposition during that time period. And I think tonight represents a culmination of a lot of hard work on the part of the township in making a determination that 9 Main Street is just not a feasible project under the constraints of the Affordable Housing Act, and this township should be given a fair opportunity to work just as hard to meet its affordable obligation in the future. And I've spoke with each member individually, and they all have a commitment to bring these 75 units to the township, just not at that project. So as what's next from a litigation standpoint, I think that a lot of that will remain to be seen. We do have some arguments, but I do think that this township committee is committed to getting those 75 units, and we're going to express that obviously to the court and to the judge. This was not in any way a slight to the court, a slight to affordable housing, a slight to fair share housing. This was a well thought out decision that it's better to bring affordable housing to this township in a different way, and this committee is committed to doing that. So I know that's not exactly what you wanted to hear, but again, I don't have a crystal ball, and I don't know what the court's going to do. I don't know what RPM is going to do. I don't know what Fair Share Housing Corporation is going to do. But us as a township and our law firm is prepared to respond to anything that's filed. So I'll say that. I think that's anything else, Mayor? Any other committee member else I want to respond to?
That's honest.
I mean, I just echo what everybody else said. I mean, it is nice to hear from residents that are happy and overjoyed. And I want to just thank Deputy Mayor Saccomandi for sitting in with our legislators, with our senator and Livingston. And I mean, I've learned a lot in the past couple of months. So, whatever we do moving forward, we're going to do it together. And that's it. So. Okay. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to any items listed on the consent agenda? I
have a comment. I just would like to explain the reason why we have the 3 resolutions for the 3 different committees. We talked about it back in January, that we were looking at all the committees and subcommittees that were mayoral appointments, and we were looking to change them to be township committee as a whole appointments. And these are the first 3 that are changing in that direction. So that's why they're there. And altogether, from what I remember, there were about a dozen of them. So we will be seeing more of them as the months go on.
Okay, anyone else? May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-066 through resolution 24-076, which are listed on the consent agenda?
So
may I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prukas?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Saccomandi?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Yes.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ordinance 2660-24, Mr. Stoller, you are scheduled to sponsor.
I would like to present an ordinance entitled Ordinance 2660-24, bond ordinance to authorize the making of various public improvements in, by, and for the township of Milburn in the county of Essex, state of New Jersey, to appropriate the sum of $3,510,000 to pay the cost thereof, to make a down payment, to authorize the issuance of bonds, to finance such appropriation, and to provide for the issuance of bonds anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds. The $3.5 million bond ordinance will be used for our annual road reconstruction project, the township pool resurfacing and interior improvements to the Milburn Police Department. The township continues to maintain a focus on infrastructure improvements. This will be the second year that we approve a bond in the new year to ensure that we can design, bid, and perform road reconstruction projects over the summer, and they tend to be less impactful to the public and schools. Road reconstruction, in addition to a full mill and pave of the roadway, is inclusive of any sewer repairs, curbing, and drainage work that may be needed on a particular street. The method of infrastructure improvement is a smarter investment because it will ensure our roadway surfaces last 10 to 15 years, as opposed to the previous micropaving method that could show signs of deterioration just after 2 to 3 years. As we have done in the previous 3 years, roads are chosen based on pavement conditions index. PCI in short. The township is looking to improve streets that have a grading of poor or marginal first. I'm sure a lot of people can put their streets on that. This year's roads scheduled for improvement are Allen, Brookhaven, Dogwood, Church Street, Colonial Way, Deerfield, Del Barton, Lake Road, partial Lake Road, Mechanic, Ocean, Orchard, Marywood, Featherbed, Oakview, Sunset Drive. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, March 19th, 2024.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Yes.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Cohen, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2661-24.
Yes, I would like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2661-24, an ordinance to repeal chapter 2-33 Shade Tree Advisory Board. The purpose of this ordinance is to repeal chapter 2-23 Shade Tree Advisory Board from the Township's code. The township wishes to reconstitute the Shade Tree Advisory Board by resolution consistent with other advisory boards and committees. The repeal of chapter 2-33 is not to eliminate the township's Shade Tree Advisory Board, but to add additional flexibility to the way Millburn Township addresses boards and committees. And this is, I guess this is the third one too, we're in the consent agenda. This is the third one to change the way that the membership is appointed. I move that this ordinance be taken up and be passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, March 19th, 2024.
You asked your question. Oh, I'm sorry. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Roll call vote. No.
I just want to clarify that we're not getting rid of it, of the Shade Tree Advisory Board. We are going to reconstitute it so that the appointed members is not appointed just by the mayor, but by the consensus of the full township committee. Because I know that there was some question, like, are we getting rid of it? We're not getting rid of it. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Roll call vote.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Yes.
Mayor Romano?
Yes. Okay, we have no old business, new business. Mr. Sakamandy, you had some items for new business, police resident protection ordinance, police regulation.
I did, yes. So it's come to my attention that Summit recently passed a resident protection ordinance. And the great thing about their ordinance is that it added additional penalties for criminals that would attempt to break into homes or cars or successfully break into homes or cars. As you know, we have some challenges on the state level in terms of catch and release and not holding criminals accountable. So what I propose is that we adopt a ordinance similar to what Summit and some other towns have done, so that we can add our own penalties at municipal level for those trying to break into our homes and cars. And I would suggest that our municipal attorney perhaps look and see whether we can increase the penalties beyond what Summit had proposed. I think in some cases they had a financial penalty, and then there was also a jail time period. Obviously, we'll need the courts to try these cases and convict them, but these are additional penalties that could be added onto other charges and potentially put people in prison for a period of time if they violate the laws. So to me, this just seems like a good idea, and I want to see what the rest of the committee thinks, and maybe we can get some consensus and find a way forward.
Sounds great.
Yeah, I'll just say, I agree with you, I support this, and I guess while we're talking about good ideas from Summit, I had sent something to everybody. Another thing going on in Summit that wouldn't require an ordinance is their police department had set up a program where a resident can request someone from the police department to come to their house and do a safety inspection. So they'll look at your locks, your window locks, your
I think that's
doorbell.
separate than this.
Well, but it's part of it, and I know, Alex, you were gonna follow up with the chief to see if we could institute a program like that, which then hopefully will reduce some of the people subject to the penalties in this new ordinance, because there'll be less crime.
Yeah, and just to give some more information on this, this was brought forward by Janelle Boyer, who's a good friend of mine from Summit, and the implications are so much more greater than what Frank had discussed. This really is bringing it back to the municipality from the county. So if a particular person is a habitual thief inside your municipality, and I know Alex is aware of a couple, and it's sent down to county, he can be remanded back to the municipality, and the municipal judge can actually lock him up for up to 90 days. So if you can actually have the county judges remand them back to municipal, and they actually can impose fines up to $2,000 for the first offense. And if they don't like the first offense, you could actually lock them up, and you can actually issue a bench warrant. So you can now have municipal judges issuing bench warrants for these criminals. So if they are picked up on the streets, now it's much different than just being picked up. You now have a bench warrant, so you can be remanded to county, and if the county doesn't do anything, you can remand them back to the municipality. And once they order them locked up, 90 days. And there's actually a couple other nice little pieces about it. Is for minors, you can hold the parents somewhat accountable as well. So there's a lot of nice little nuances in this ordinance that we can take advantage of.
Just a question, Alex, if we did, what is our, I assume that's like remanded in Milburn. What is
No, it's not. It goes back to county.
Oh, they're
So
remanded there.
the
Okay.
county
So I was
is
gonna say,
responsible.
how much, we don't have unlimited capacity.
Right, so as part of the county, the county is absolutely responsible for jailing them when you pass them back.
Good.
Mr. Cantor, do you have any?
So, Mayor, our office is currently reviewing the Summit ordinance for constitutionality and just making sure that it doesn't violate any other issues, any other statutes. We're not confident in that yet, but I'm not saying it doesn't or it does. We're looking into it actively, and we'll have an opinion to the committee before the next meeting.
Great, good.
And the other piece too, I'm sorry, one other piece is the whole idea of being a soft target versus a hard target too is the perpetrators figure out quickly who's pushing back and who's not, and kind of starts to become, if you become a difficult target, you know you're going to get remanded and or locked up for 90 days and or a couple $1,000 fines and or a bench warrant. Start to choose the other townships with the same course, quite easily. So, we'll make sure we get that the pushback from Mr. Cantor quickly for the.
Yes.
And Mr. Cantor, I would ask that when you're looking at the constitutionality of it, also look at what the maximum amount of fines or jail time we can impose.
So that is for municipal court, that is definitely the maximum municipal court can do.
Let's look
I
at
think the issue is being charged for municipal and also a state statute at the same time. And, obviously if it's a lesser included ordinance when it gets remanded, I have to look at it to make sure that it doesn't violate any double jeopardy or any other constitutional issues. I'm sure the Summit attorney did that already, but I just want to be confident before I put it before this committee that is appropriate.
Yeah, and let's look at the constitution of our cars getting stolen out of our driveways too, so.
Thank you. Did you want to add anything?
I was just gonna add that the general penalty is 2,090 days in jail, but also I will also bring this to the attention of the township's judge as well.
Okay, good. Okay, Deputy Mayor Sacramento, Police Department staffing concerns on crime and consideration of legislative action.
Sure, so this basically summarized a few other points I had asked to be put on the agenda. So we'll take them sort of one at a time. So first, police department staffing. I've been getting reports that a lot of people have concerns of our staffing levels, especially overnight. I know that one neighborhood, the Beechcroft neighborhood, actually hired private security overnight because they felt that they were not being adequately protected. That troubles me a little bit. Not that they did it, but that they felt they had to do it, because that tells me, okay, maybe our police are perhaps understaffed. I know. So we are doing a staffing study. I'm hoping that Mr. McDonald can report on that, but I have asked the chief what our staffing levels are at night. And I was told that we weren't able to get that information. I believe Mr. Stoller was told that as well, correct? So I'd like to know from the municipal attorney, is that something that township committee members are entitled to know? And if not, is that something we can do in ordinance so that we can find that out? Because someone needs to be holding them accountable.
So Camille, there's something called the appropriate authority, and in our town, our business administrator is appropriate authority, and that's who the chief of police reports to. There's a general public safety concern as to staffing, and if that staffing knowledge got out to the general public and people knew, say, on a Tuesday night, the police department was short-staffed, that would lead to additional crime. It's very unusual for elected officials and anyone outside of, as you know, our police department is a paramilitary operation. They have lots of rules and orders and regulations. It would be highly unusual to have that information beyond the chief of police and perhaps even the administrator. I don't even know if the administrator would be privy to it, but he probably doesn't know it on a daily basis. So again, the committee can attempt to do what it does. I can tell you it would be highly unusual to have that information spread further than the chief of police and the appropriate authority. Because I guess with that information, you don't have the ability to demand additional staffing. Only the chief of police and our administrator could do that. So can an ordinance be passed? I would have to look into it.
An ordinance passed to make the chief tell us what the staffing hours?
Well, he doesn't have to tell you.
But what ordinance are you talking about?
Well, I was asked a question.
Right.
I was asking what mechanism there is available, because clearly residents in our town feel that they are not protected at night. I have heard reports that there may be 3 officers at night. There may be more, there may be less. I've heard that other towns have more. We just don't know because we on the township committee are apparently not privy to that information. And it's difficult for us to go back to the public and say, well, we're doing all we can about crime when we don't even have all the data.
Well, Alex, how's the staffing study going?
Well, I had, the chief and I have met with 2 of the respondents. I had sent the information to the township committee. Kind of hearing none, I guess I will put a candidate in front of the committee for that staffing study. It is about $80,000 for the type of study that we've requested. Somewhere in that ballpark, $80,000 to $90,000 for that study. It would be a comprehensive study, which I think is also important in the conversation that we're currently having here, is just that, one of the things that, and I'll speak a little bit to the conversation about Beechcroft and that they hired private security, is that I think that resident then also said it provided them with peace of mind. It was something they chose to do, right? Understanding that what they wanted at that point in time was for a cop to sit on their street, which is not a possibility. It's just not going to happen in the way that you function as a police department in a municipality. And that part of the operation is that you have police officers on at a time where the most activity takes place, that you're using efficient resources, that, if you have between noon and 8 p.m., the vast majority of your calls, that is when you're going to have the vast majority of your police officers on the street so that they can respond to car accidents, resident complaints, crime, mall crime, whatever it might be. And so I think before we sort of react to what we hear and what we feel and things like that, is that, one, we are doing the staffing study. I think this will, assuming that the committee is fine with me presenting you with a consultant and putting it on the agenda, I will do that. I think we're ready to at that point. I just wanted to see if there were any questions or concerns about, the various proposals that were received. And that will help sort of determine some of that. I don't want to just assume that, because sometimes things happen at night, then all of a sudden that we're understaffed. I want to caution everybody that, and I also want to caution that, even getting up here and talking like this is that, it creates a difficult situation. And so, certainly we've had public information sessions with public safety, with the police department. We've sat in this room in particular and talked about things with the public. We've provided that type of information.
You wanna do that again? Maybe it's time, when was the
Yeah,
last time you
yeah.
did that?
It was a year ago.
So it's time to do
I-
it
I-
again.
Suggestions, yeah.
Yes, time to do it again.
I think from the standpoint of providing a methodical, cautious approach and giving the police department the tools required to be
Yes.
successful.
Yes.
And giving the board, the township committee, a nice dashboard of visibility into some key performance indicators that allow us to understand what's happening, week to week, month to month, quarter to quarter, year over year, would be nice to have.
Sure.
So we do understand what is actually going on.
Yeah.
Far be it from me to get involved in a paramilitary operation and that I would know any better than the police chief or anyone else. However, for us to have visibility in the changes of a period over period time, I think is very important.
Yeah.
So we can understand if something's going off skew. Now, if something is happening in one of the neighborhoods, that's when emotions are the rawest, I would assume.
Correct.
And people, react, and if they hire private security because they want to feel safer, et cetera, we have to handle that as well. But we need to understand what's going on. Now, from what we said before on the municipal ordinance to become a more difficult target for criminals based on the constitutionality, which I'm sure is not going to be an issue.
That's what he's gonna determine.
Putting up more, making it more difficult for repeat criminals inside of our township, and things along those lines. Those are really tools that we can actually do quickly, because Summit did it in a matter of months. And speaking to Jamel and what they've done, and they've already seen it starting to take some effect. There's some low hanging fruit, some things that we can do while we do the study on the amount of police officers and staffing, et cetera. But I think we have to just be cautious not to be overly reactive. But we should move that along very quickly too.
Yeah.
Well, I think as Mr. Stoller pointed out, data is everything. We need these key performance indicators. What we're seeing right now is the KPIs. Well, I think they were recently updated since I pointed out that prior to a few weeks ago, they hadn't been updated since August. We need to have more consistent reporting of crime. We need to have a more complete and comprehensive dashboard that includes a reporting of all the crimes. We report only a certain subset of crime. What if there are, a lot of domestic violence cases going on? While we can't give any details of that, for privacy reasons, maybe that's one of the metrics that should be tracked. We should be seeing what types of calls
You can't
police are responding to.
But I think we also have to think about like what value of what we're reporting provides to the community. If you say car burglaries, home burglaries, that provides a value to the community knowing that that's going on.
Right.
Knowing that somebody's, having domestic violence issues, I don't know that necessarily adds value to the community and what they know. I feel like we just have to take a pragmatic approach to this and understand, and I completely agree, Deputy Mayor, about the KPIs and providing, some sort of dashboard that allows people to understand what's happening in terms of crime. And I know that we've been in these meetings before where you said, I don't necessarily believe the numbers that you have there, but if we look at all the categories for 2022 to 2023, all but 2 have gone down, right? One of those is home burglaries, right? Which I think we've all kind of felt a little bit, right? And then one of them is shoplifting. So in terms of, aggravated assault or all these other UCR, traditional UCR categories, right? Those crimes have gone down, with the exception of burglaries and shoplifting. So being able to provide the public with succinct information like that on a timely basis, I think is fair and necessary. I agree with adding tools to the toolbox that the police department can utilize is also important and fair. To Committeeman Cohen's question about whether they can provide this type of service, I think that we need to look into certainly what training was involved in those police officers and some of being able to do that. Look and see about doing that. I think that's a good idea. I also think that understanding that people with the township can register their alarms with the police department so that when you're not home and your alarm goes off, that dispatch gets that. Also about communicating with the public about how they can harden their own target, right? Not just us as a town, like we spent $1.5 million on, technology infrastructure for public safety. Same thing here, is like alerting the municipality and the township residents how they can harden their own target, make sure that they're not susceptible to these types of crimes as well, which I think is a good sort of public safety campaign as well.
Yes.
So
And also too, I think another, meeting with the police chief and maybe some staff would be nice, some type of a public, public meeting with the police chief or with, the police staff to just get an update and what we can do to harden our homes. I mean, there was a fantastic meeting in the Millburn volunteer squad about a month ago. I know Frank joined me there. It was fantastic where they went through the Poets Watch. They did a little bit of how to harden your home and see something, say something, and etc. I think the best was best alarm system is a dog.
Yeah, so I know, a number of these things we've talked about in the past, but I want to see some action. And I think as a committee, we need to start saying, we want to see some action. I think the suggestion of having another forum with the police chief is a great first start. I would hope that you notice it in such a way that if all the township committee members wanted to be there, they'd be able to do so. And I think that, residents want to be able to ask questions directly to the chief. Obviously, he may not be able to answer all of them, but they should have the opportunity at least once a year, and we should probably do that more than once a year, to keep the public engaged and let them know what the police is doing, because I think it's important for the residents to know what we are doing and what they can do to help themselves. So some other things that I wanted to bring up, a lot of the problems that we're seeing with these auto thefts and home burglaries have to do with the fact that criminals are getting caught and they're getting released. So obviously something needs to change on a state level. We have no control over what happens on a state level. We can pick up our phones and call our assembly men and women. We can call our state senators. But I want to see if there's something else we can do. I'd like to know if we can band together with other towns and if there's a mechanism we could use to sue either the governor or the state attorney general to get them to start enforcing some of these laws and stop catching police. Is there any legal mechanism that we can take to try and force change? Is there something that we can do as a township committee to try and force change higher up?
So, I mean, I think tonight's a great example of how to impact change. I think it's coming together, and there's a lot of similarly situated towns in Millburn that have been negatively affected by bail reform. And somebody needs to look at it. I don't know that it's actually a legal aspect, but maybe coming together and, writing to the legislature and things of that nature and having meetings. I don't know that it's a lawsuit, but I think challenging a state statute is a difficult thing to do. And we may be out of time to do that anyway. But I think, making sure that everybody understands the negative impact that bail reform is having on all the towns in West Essex. It's not just Millburn. I mean, it's Millburn, Livingston, North Powell, where sort of attorney, car thefts, and now burglaries because people are breaking into homes for key fobs are increasing. It's because they're not their catch and release, but that's what the law says. So I don't know of anything else to do other than, you know, awareness and coming together, but you know, I don't know, there's much more that I could do as a lawyer from that.
I think taking back some of the control organically through the grassroots of a municipal ordinance would very much help that as well. Because now we're taking the initiative and pushing it back on the county to lock these perpetrators up, and they'll start to see that a lot of the, you know, we won't be the last, I can bet you that, to take that grassroots initiative from that municipal ordinance. And once that starts to happen and that snowball starts going, they'll start to look.
Yeah, I mean, provided it passes muster, I agree with the committeeman. I mean, you'll hear stories from police chiefs that people are stealing cars, being arrested, and going back out and stealing a car the same night. So I think, you know, if there is something we could do, but I don't know, to your point, Deputy Mayor, what like legal action Millburn could take against the state or the county. I don't really see a path forward on either way.
Well, can we look into that, you know, at least have some research done to see what remedies are available?
I mean, I'm happy to spend some time, but I don't see a path forward on either of those two avenues.
I would just say, Frank, I think that, I'll just speak for myself, like, I agree with you, and if there's anything that you wanna try to do to start something and bring the communities together, like, I mean, I support that. I think I'm not.
I think also if everyone just writes to our legislators, I mean, you know, power comes in numbers. If everyone would just write, you know, they don't hear from the residents. I think if they would start hearing from residents, maybe, you know, they would.
So maybe as a TC, there's more we could do, maybe in our weekly Millburn message. At the end of it, we could encourage folks to write to their legislators.
Yeah, but to Frank's point, you smack the hell out of Governor Murphy with a big lawsuit. I'm pretty sure that Summit, Chatham, Livingston are all gonna jump on board and say, you know what, enough's enough. Look at our insurance rates. The average insurance rates in New Jersey just went up 26%. Has everybody renewed their insurance yet? It's coming. I mean, it's literally, and we have 4 children. It's not very nice. It's insane really on these rates on insurance. So residents, not just Millburn, Short Hills, but New Jersey residents are becoming fed up with what's happening with crime. So, you know, if we slap them with a lawsuit, whether we're gonna be successful or not, time will tell. But if you get enough residents banding together, it can become a really large issue and really a movement, just like, you know, a lot of different things. So we start municipal grassroots here and it becomes a groundswell, and that's how change starts. It becomes a groundswell because what's gonna drive it is the economic impact of insurance rates on everybody in this room. Because we all see it day to day.
So I'm fortunate enough to serve as a municipal attorney in 3 of the more affluent towns in West Essex, and I know it's a shared. I would be happy liaison and maybe put together in touch maybe one committee member from each of those governing bodies, and I think a meeting like that can go a long way. I think you have a lot of shared issues. It's not only fair share housing, but it's also crime, and crime's affecting all these towns. So that might be a good start because they're actually all looking to take action on these same issues. So I'd be happy, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, whoever wants to meet, and maybe I could come together. We can form in an informal setting and come up with a game plan. Because I think the shared resources of all these municipalities, I think would go a long way.
Yeah, and I think all it takes is one community like ours to be the leader. And I think we'll find other communities who want to jump on, and then we can collectively look and see what options are available.
If you want.
Yeah, great.
I think we could be that common thread, and happy to jump on if you want to.
Sure.
Okay,
Awesome.
so now we have a second public comment. This public comment period is to allow for final comments from the community. When invited to speak to offer your comments, please come to the lectern and clearly state your name and whether you are a Millburn resident and or property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, seeing our meetings are recorded and readily available to the public. A reminder to help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session.
Charlie Bambara, resident of Short Hills for 27 years. I want you to know you did take action tonight. You stuck your necks out for all of us. You don't stand alone. We stand with you. I personally will commit, if they ever threaten you with incarceration, I'll personally deliver your lunches and dinners from the restaurant of your choice in town. Again, my thanks, and one more comment. Mayor Romano, some criticism was levied against you for not speaking for the town. To the contrary, I think you've been very careful to share the leadership with the township committee members and to distribute that responsibility and not to be autocratic. So I don't think that's a criticism that I would offer you. I think that's a compliment. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Lauren Nathan, I've spoken before, and again, my heartfelt thanks. I did want to ask a question, though. The public discussion in the town, at least, seemed to suggest that the township had agreed to provide more affordable housing units than we were legally obligated to provide. Is that accurate? And if so, why did we do it?
We'll answer when we're all done.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm speaking for Stephanie Harris Morgan, who's homesick, and she's got fever. She really doesn't want to get on Zoom. She's not at her best. So she has a quick question. When will the Citizens Advisory Committee on Fair Share Housing be formed so we can start to work on replacement sites or changes to the sites identified in the settlement agreement? She means to show goodwill to the court, whose judge is convinced we have no intention of complying. The committee should be formed ASAP to start to identify locations that make sense. We should also considering up the percentage from 20 to 30% where feasible, and include over 55, age 55 housing. So that's, and I know she would love to be on that committee. Stephanie Harris Morgan, thank you.
Thank
you. Good evening, Elena Galottini, a resident of 26 years. I wanted to thank the committee very much and the mayor for tonight, for this resolution. And I have a question. The town, the building has gone out of control. I don't recognize this town anymore. There is a lot of these townhouses, ugly, big, that have popped up Main Street, Milburn Avenue, everywhere. I believe this must be in part for compliance with this obligation to build affordable housing, but it seems to me that the town is losing its characteristic of a small town, its flavor. These are an ugly building, and I wanted to know what's going on. The residents should be informed about this. Can this be stopped? Because it's changing the flavor of the town at this point. So that was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeffrey Feld. I live in Poets section of this town. In light of the suggestion that we're trying to increase transparency and competency, I'm just going to really give back some follow-up questions that have never really been answered. One goes back to best practices. I reiterate whether we should be posting, let's say, the last 5 years on the financial page, the best practice inventory responses, so the public knows what we have done or what we haven't done in accordance with the state's best practices. Following that is, when are we going to adopt the insurance registration ordinance, which is a best practice, and the anti-nepotism ordinance, which is another best practice? At the last meeting, I talked about the annual debt statement that was filed and amended. It's deceptive that the original one was deleted and there is an amended one, and the amended one should say amended. I mean, these are the things when you talk about transparency and building trust and confidence, of documents that are being posted or removed, it doesn't give us a warm and fuzzy feeling inside. Regarding that, the supplemental debt statement that was posted today in connection with the bond ordinance, the first reading, there's a question as to since the beginning of this year, approximately, say, $1.7 million was reduced in debt. I'd like to know, what projects were paid off. I think the public is entitled to know what ordinances and capital projects. As to your oversight, legislative oversight powers, I recommend that you investigate how a private citizen municipal criminal complaint was filed against a dissenting resident. That summons lacked a dated and a probable cause finding on his face. This is something you need to investigate, because in the last 3 years, like today, we denied Main Street, but people that dissented, they got repercussions against them. Retaliation occurred, and we had to stop that. And finally, at the last meeting, this group, Fiduciaries of Public Trust, authorized the filing of a Main Street, New Jersey application. That application has not been attached. It's not been drafted. I suggest that your next meeting, before the March 15th deadline, that you go back and ratify the filing of the actual application, because there's questions as to the boundaries that was said. As to the Main Street, which is less than the boundaries of the SID. And I think you need to look into that, especially in the time summaries from our former municipal attorneys. They prepared at least 2 studies telling you questions about that litigation and problems as to approving the budget and other issues in that case.
Thank you.
Hi, Eric Osman again, Short Hills resident. I'm about to end my political career, not that I ever had one, by suggesting this. My economic hero is Milton Friedman. And Milton Friedman believes in a use tax. I just calculated that I traveled 1,762 miles on foot last year, mostly in this town. And I have seen the deterioration of the roads in this town. And it's largely driven by, and you all are gonna hate me for this, renovating your homes. The big trucks are there, they sit in front of these houses, and they ruin the homes. And my proposal is to supplement the $3.5 million bond ordinance to start requiring that if you want to renovate your home, not only, I don't mean this as a threat, I think it's a wonderful thing that people renovate their homes, but as part of that, a reasonable fee be assessed to pay for some of the road repair, because it is a direct causal relationship. And I think that we could start a trend in this country and this state by recognizing use tax usage, because I think it would go a long way toward fairness. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jean Pasternak, resident. I want to add to my thanks to the many thanks that came before you today. It's really great to see the leadership that you all have demonstrated in building consensus around something that really was the seminal event for our town. So thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing that permeate into the choices of committee members and encouraging that kind of consensus building beyond the township committee into all the commissions and committees that you are all responsible for. I want to also thank you for the second comment period. So we learned a lot so far. I wanted to add on to what Frank was talking about, and also Ben, regarding the crime issue and being more informed as citizens. Would it be possible to invite our legislators to come to listen to our concerns. I can't remember in the 4 or 5 years that I've been coming here that I've actually seen someone come and listen to us as a community. I think it would be nice to have them visit and actually have us be allowed to ask some questions of them. Well, I mean, they might have come, but not actually to talk to us, you know. So I think it would be refreshing to have that opportunity. The other thing I was gonna follow on from what Eric was just talking about, the zoning code enforcement. I've had a really productive exchange with Alex and some of the members of the, you know, some of the employees of the different departments. They actually came to my home and, you know, surveyed some of what was going on around us. And I have to say, there is a lot, I think, that can be done to prevent some of the quality of life deterioration that goes on when people renovate or build new homes. There's a lot of things that people aren't aware of. I know as a citizen, I wasn't really sure about how I could be participating especially when there are no variances being asked for. But there are a lot of disturbances, a lot of issues, even sometimes when plans aren't being followed. What action can we have as citizens? Can we be educated more about that, since there's so much building going on around town? And lastly, we had the opportunity to meet somebody from East Hanover, one of their council people, just, you know, talking to them. And they have something called an OEM, I think resident volunteer effort. It's sort of like an extension of what our volunteer first aid squad is about. It sounded like it was a really good idea. I've seen, like with the floods, Ida and so forth, some of our citizens have come forward to help with, you know, filling sandbags and things like that. It seems like they have an organized effort to do those things. So maybe we should look at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Leah Cruz, Short Hills resident. I just wanted to once again thank you guys for it's so refreshing to hear the conversations up here on the dais and to have more transparency. When Frank was asking about the police staffing, I didn't know we weren't entitled to that information. So now that I know, I wouldn't like keep harassing you for that information. Hopefully you can work with Alex and the police. The public, I don't think needs to know. We trust you. We elected you. So, but it was just nice to have some conversation. I don't think the public had a lot of transparency and information given to us in the past. Also, I think the increasing the municipal fine, I forgot if that was Ben or Frank, would be a great deterrence once people realize that's happening. I think that will deter criminals, hopefully. And then once again, since we're on the police, I would love more consistency in the police blotter. And maybe we can consider Nixle again. Summit uses that. And I subscribe actually to Summit in Maplewood. And I love getting the alerts because I know there was an armed robbery on Indiana Street in Maplewood and I work close to there. So I avoided that street. You know, it would be really nice to get that real-time information. So perhaps we can consider that for the future. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Diane FallEglo. I know a lot of people are really concerned with crime. I'm really concerned with speeding in this town. The speeding is out of control. I know when you do a ticket blitz, it does work. You make some money for the town and people start knowing that there's speed traps. It took about 1.5 years to get 2 more speed humps near the South Mountain School. I know, Frank, I think you spoke about something I'd spoken about a couple of years ago, doing a town-wide survey. And I think it would be really great that there should be more speed humps going up Baltusrol. I know people are concerned with the new Metropolitan, cars speeding up to the train station up there. So I think speed humps are really important. Also, I didn't hear if you were going to release the 1.8 million to, or how you can address the retaining wall at Paper Mill. And I was not trying to be offensive to Mayor Romano. Okay, I just think that when you run for office, you have a lot to say. And I think Frank and Ben, you've been great as 2 new members who really speak and share your thoughts. And I just think that when you're up there, you got elected to do a job, and we'd love to know how you feel about things. Thank you.
Hi, I have a smile on my face because I'm just vibing on everybody up here. I'm really thankful. Just the energy is awesome. So thank you. And it was very nice to see you, everybody at the Lunar New Year Festival downtown. So I just have just a couple of things that I just wanted to bring up. And I really thank you so much also on what you've done with the 9 Main Street project. Thank you very, very much. And I'm looking forward to seeing the solutions. I just wanted to just throw out a couple of things that were sort of like on top of mind. Alex, if you could update me on what is going on with the Fairfield and Martindale roads in the Fairfield Estate section, because I didn't see it listed, and they're the worst roads in the township, and they have not been renovated, probably fully renovated in over 30 years, because I've lived there for well over 24. They had micro paving. So I just wanted to know, and can we fire a contractor even if they're at the lowest price? Like, do we rehire them? Like Cifelli and Sons, their contracting is subpar. I've seen their work, and I hope they're not doing our roads, especially the road I live on. And then I wanted to ask about the Shade Tree 2-23 repeal. I'm very excited. I think that you touched on it, Tara. But I am concerned about, we have a lot of canopy loss. The ash trees are significantly, I don't know what percent of total they represent as the trees, but because they're just dying all over the place and have to come down, you know, I want people to think about it, like as people cut trees, like my neighbor's clear cutting their whole property. And so, you know, 2 to 3 caliber trees for $200 don't really cut it because you can't like then cover the electrical lines and things like that. So it's just something to think about. And I would love to volunteer for that committee. I'm game to be on any committee, and that one I have a lot of knowledge about plants and trees. It'd be really fun. And I'm really thankful for the subcommittee on zoning. I think that that is an amazing thing to be strategic and have a subcommittee and relook at zoning. And I encourage possibly to relook at it for engineering, land use, and also the planning board, and also developing some type of taste police force in our town, because what you had to say was really, really important. Taste level matters and design matters. I'm a trained designer, and I can't believe some of the buildings that are going up. And the best one for me are the people that put lights in the eaves of their house, like and spotlight their house. No offense to people that do that, but it's just a design travesty of epic proportions. And I would really like to see a board like that. So the other thing that I wanted to ask you is, in terms of an engineering firm that receives township funding projects, can they be allowed to do other projects for residents? Because there seems to be a conflict of interest. And I'm not sure if Casey and Keller still receives township projects, but it seems to me that there might be a conflict of interest there, just in my own experience in dealing with them. And then I also wanted to talk about engineering standards. I mean, I unfortunately have very limited time, so
yeah,
I
I
can't
think
get
your
into
time
it.
was up. I'm
Thank
sorry.
you. It's fine. I
Sorry,
totally
thank you.
understand. I'll send an email. We'll talk next time. Thanks.
Okay, Ted Kunz, back. Just a quick question for you guys. Do you ever consider the deer problem that we have in town? We notice it certainly more in our area. And that's one thing that is really increasing. Crime may be going up as well, but the deer population is also increasing. I'm not going to quote Lincoln again, but I know how he would have solved it back in his day. But is there anything we can do about it? We have herds of deer running around, and they're just eating up everything. And it's a considerable expense to the residents to keep replanting, and I just feel like we're just feeding them. So just wanted to see if there's any ideas that you guys have, and I know there's some contraceptive type of solutions as opposed to shooting them or removing them somehow. But just an idea to put on your agenda to see if you can think about that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello again. My name is Pua Fari. I live in Short Hills. I just wanted to engage with the conversation on crime. I mentioned I was actually not here not that long ago. We were speaking about Poets Watch, and I believe it was about a year ago when there was a forum, which is when I think the chief of police was there, another community member who's not here, and she wasn't able to make it, but she really sort of took the lead and facilitated and coordinated everybody to sort of come together. And I had the opportunity to work with her. So now I've been a part of this like core team with a few of us that sort of started as of last December, January, when in our particular section of Poets, we saw a really big increase in crime. So while the crime is non-violent, the patterns of escalation have, within, I think I would say the 3 years I've noticed, it started with package theft, and then it would slowly escalate to checking for car doors, trespassing, and then I had called it. I was looking at the data. My background is in behavior analysis and forensic evaluations, and so I was pretty sure that's going to happen. So I was literally tracking every single blotter. So it would have been helpful to have a more, I think, as I think Frank had mentioned, just to have more of that data available. Not the specifics, because I know that there's ongoing investigations and we don't want to compromise those. So I completely respect that. But I think just knowing that we were able to, you know, kind of look at the patterns. We worked for a year to with the, you know, our community policing liaison. And we've built a fantastic, I think, partnership. The group has grown to about 500. I think we've expanded it beyond just poets to about 800 members now. So we're going to meet and have more of each, I think, section now has their own group leader so that we can sort of connect and coordinate. So the way that we're able to do that currently is using WhatsApp. So when things happen, that has sort of become the way that we notify each other, you know, stay inside, there's a point of contact, and, you know, we kind of have like block captains and everybody sort of notifies each other. But some of the concerns end up being that not everybody's on WhatsApp. So for, you know, I think a lot of industries aren't allowed, they don't allow people to have it, or they're just, you know, not, notifications are off. So people don't know, like, you know, what's going on. So I think an alert system that could, you know, be done would be great. Additionally, I think, you know, the specific area that we live in, the crime, yes, it's not that many in terms of, you know, if we compare ourselves to Newark, yes, we don't have homicides, we don't have assault and rates at that level, but it has gone to a point where we have videos. We had 3 break-ins between 7 and 8 p.m. just this week, not that far from where I live. So, you know, we heard the police did a fantastic job, you know, taking care of apprehending people. But the fact that, you know, we have that going on is happening. So I just wanted to raise awareness on that we are looking forward to working with the Township Committee on this further, and want to thank the police and all of their collaboration. So yes, I'm done. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hi, Richard Cyber, town resident. I always like to give credit when credit is due. Mr. Cantor, I'm so proud of you. An old wise man told me one day, the man to fear is the man who has no fear. And I always live my life that way. The man to fear is the man who has no fear. And I'll give you an example of one, David and Goliath. And we are in a fight with Goliath right now in the fair share housing. But I'm confident in David at this point. So good luck. And I'm behind you. And I know the residents of the town are behind you. And it's just nice to know that you're there to fight for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Evening, Jerry Kung, Short Hills resident. I'm not going to stand up here and offer philosophy, unfortunately. Just something a little bit more practical. When residents move to town, is there any sort of welcome packet that we give them just to tell them, hey, your trash pickup is this day, your recycling pickup is this day, there's a volunteer first aid squad, there's this, there's that, come to TC meetings on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. at Town Hall. You know, I think that right now our township seems to have a communications problem. I know there's the weekly Milburn message, and thank you, Mayor Romano, for sharing that responsibility with the rest of the TC members, but do we have a sense of how many people are actually signed up for the Milburn message, how that number has changed over time? I know that we had switched services at some point. I think it was 2022. I know this because I was signed up for the prior version, and then I didn't even realize that I had stopped getting them. And then I had to dig through the website to find out how to re-sign up for it, which I did recently. So I'm just wondering, you know, if it's 2,000 residents out of the 22,000 residents in town, then maybe we need to do some work in terms of getting that number up, because we do share a lot of important information via that weekly message. I know there's Milburn Alert or some Swift. I'm just very confused as to like all of the different types. It's probably my own ignorance. I'm sorry about that. But you know, speaking up here, I think Nixle came up as part of the conversation. I remember Mayor Eglo had talked about when the Hawaii wildfires had happened, do we have something similar for residents in town? And you know, if only 1/10 of the residents in town are getting the emergency messages, then you know, we really need to work on that. Just curious in terms of, are we collecting metrics on that? I know we have a public information officer on our staff directory for town hall. What's her role? Is she full-time? What has she been doing? I know I've seen 2 press releases come from her in the last year and a half, maybe. So just curious what her role is. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we will now close public comment. Would you like to comment, Committeeman Stoller?
Sure, I can start. I'll go very quick. Just issues, Jeff Feld, answer some of him, best practices, absolutely, we should be looking at those. Nepotism, no. The annual debt statement, I looked at the deleted and amended, I didn't see I actually looked for that, so I'll ask Alex again to share with me the difference. I didn't see the difference between the amended and what's deleted. And then I believe he did go through the 1.7 million ad nauseum last time, but I'll ask him to go through it again with me and I'll share it. Main Street application, that will be shared shortly. Eric Osserman, where's Eric at? He's the new Pete Buttigieg of Milburn, I guess, with a road repair tax, I guess. Gene, I'd be happy to go with you to some of these legislative meetings. Sheila Oliver, show up, stand up, speak up. We could go and talk about crime at their meetings, and instead of inviting them there, let's just go to their meetings and we'll speak on their behalf. And Pooja is our very own Milburn CSI. I love it. So, more data, more data, more data. Frank and I have talked about data, and it's the most important part of it. So that's it.
Yeah, just, when people do renovate their houses, they are already, if they do a big job, they are already assessed a fee for that, but it is restricted in what it can be used for. And Alex, you can correct me, but I don't believe it can be used for road maintenance. I think that's not permitted. So it would be adding a fee to, where there already is one, it would be adding an additional fee. And the deer are a problem. I'm not sure what we can do about it. Obviously they do something in the reservation every so often, but you're absolutely right. There's, that's the most frequent notice I get on my Ring camera is that a deer is in my property. So, but I'm not sure we have any control over that unless they die, and then we send animal control to pick them up. That's about it.
Deputy Mayor?
Sure. So Mr. Nathan, you wanted to know what we were legally obligated to provide. Real quick, without going into a lot of specifics, there's 2 parts to a town's affordable housing obligation. There's the RDP, which is what you must build. Then there's the unmet need, which is what towns need to provide for the ability to build. For whatever reason, the individuals that negotiated our town's agreement back in 2020, I guess, decided to affirmatively build to satisfy unmet need. This is a very uncommon mechanism as far as I can tell. I haven't found examples of other towns doing a 100% affordable to go towards unmet need, but we took action on that tonight. And I think that's probably what people mean when they say what we were required to build, legally obligated to build versus what was optional. All of it was folded into the settlement agreement, but unmet need is generally handled with other mechanisms. For Ms. Morgan via Ms. Feld, when will the Citizens Advisory Committee be formed? I actually will take a little bit of the blame on that. I was going to write up a proposal of what that committee would actually do and then get that over to Alex. I think everyone on this dais is in favor of the committee. We just haven't really sat down and figured out exactly what the role should be. And I think the role of that committee now might be different in light of the decisions that were made tonight. So I will try and take it upon myself to come up with some ideas to share with the rest of the committee on that. But I do think that's something that everyone is supportive of, and we'll look to try and get that created sooner rather than later. And I certainly agree that senior housing should be a component. And I find it interesting that you mentioned upping the percentages. That's actually something that Mayor Romano and I had talked about with our assembly members and with our state senator. So hopefully there's something that can be done at the state level for communities like ours, you know, where it might make sense for the ratio to be 2-to-1 as opposed to 4-to-1 as it is now. Let's see, Mr. Osman, the use tax for the roads, certainly something like that, I think would have to go to a referendum. You know, even if it doesn't have to, I think it should. But given that it'd be a new tax, I think the proper procedures that would go to a referendum. I don't know if there's consensus amongst the others on this dais to do that. We probably would have to get a better sense of, you know, how much the tax would be, et cetera. But I have a feeling if that went to referendum, that would probably be unpopular and probably would not pass. Let's see. Ms. Cruz asked for more consistent reporting of the police blotter. I certainly agree. I'm hoping that Mr. McDonald will take that under advisement and pass that along to the police chief. I agree. I think Summit does a very good job with their Nixle system. I've inquired about that here a number of times. And I believe that Mr. McDonald was going to have the chief talk to the chief of Summit to find out a little bit more of how they handle the alerting, what the staffing requirements are, et cetera. So perhaps Mr. McDonald can give us an update on that. I do believe that Mr. McDonald had also said to me at one point that we may have technology in-house that we could use, but we would need a better sense of what the alerts are that people wanted to receive. I would suggest perhaps maybe Mr. McDonald, we could set up a meeting with the heads of all of the various neighborhood watch groups in town and find out from them what sort of alerts they'd like to receive. And then maybe if we, have established what that should be, let's look at the technology we have and see if we can make that happen. Ms. Eglo is concerned about speeding in town. I agree. A few meetings ago, I had brought up the topic of a townwide traffic study. I think Mr. McDonald was going to look into the cost for that. So perhaps he could speak to where he is in that process. Let's see here. Mr. Kuntz, the deer problem. I agree. There is definitely a deer problem. I have probably no less than like 16 deer that traipse through my backyard on a daily basis. I do believe that at one point in time, our town had a deer management program. I actually think that Mary McNett was highly involved in that. Unfortunately, she has passed, but I'm hoping that there's some information about it, but I think that's something we should perhaps look into. I know the county has some sort of program, but I think that's limited to the reservation. And obviously the deer aren't just on the reservation. So maybe there's some humane methods we could look into. So maybe Mr. McDonald, maybe could do a little research to see what the town used to do and whether that's something we could potentially bring back. Mr. Kung, since you're my husband, I'll answer your questions. If anyone else wants to chime in on those.
Committeewoman Frukas, would you like to add?
I just want to reiterate and affirm that the affordable housing subcommittee, is that what we're calling it? Yeah, I think that we need to constitute that, and it should be helping us in this what's next, determining how we're gonna go forward. So I'm happy if you want to work, I'm happy to help you out with that. We can get that together so that we can get something ready for the next meeting. I also just want to let everybody in the room know that the use tax reminded me of this, that in March, the first meeting, the Environmental Commission, they unanimously passed a resolution, was it, of in favor of an open space trust fund. And Renee, are you coming?
Yes, I'll be here.
Right, Renee is gonna come and speak to us about that, but March 5th is our next meeting. So just so when you see that, this is just letting you know that that's happening and come find out more about it.
Mr. McDonald?
I'll just speak to a couple things, in particular with the deer. So the township did have a deer management program for quite some time. And then the county had started their own deer management program in the reservation, which, you know, in all honesty, I think is where certainly we see a lot of our population come from, whether it's the, you know, East Orange Water Company property or the reservation. The only places that we were able to do deer management were the par 3 and the Okie track. I think that, you know, there certainly the county hadn't done their program for some years during COVID and after COVID. What we noticed was that, and as many of you may have realized, is that the deer management program kind of went away with the county taking up that that charge in terms of managing the population within the reservation. And so I would just maybe say that if we give it a little bit more time with their management program now ongoing and starting up again, you'll see some management of that population. The township also has on its animal control page some resources in how you can protect your yard with regard to deer. And certainly, I think you know, what we plant and, you know, how we allow access to the yard or whatever it might be also helps. I know that they can get through much of anything, but I would just say, first and foremost, if you go down that road, the first step would be to do a census and see whether there really is a large issue or whether it's a, you know, something that could be managed by the county's operations. But that's what I'll offer in terms of insight into that. As it relates to the nepotism ordinance that was asked about by Mr. Feld, as well as the insurance collection, and also the lead-based paint inspections, all of which have been sort of mandated to municipalities by the state. We are in the process of drafting a nepotism ordinance. We currently have one in our policy manual, but we'll be putting that before the township committee in the near future as one of those best practices, and as was discussed by Committeeman Cohen, I believe at the end of last year. In addition, we'll be putting an ordinance in front of the township committee for the lead-based paint inspections of homes that are older than 1978 and are rentals. If you rent your home that is older than 1978, it has to have a lead safe certificate. We will be contracting a company to perform those inspections. And I think the charge to the resident for that would be $250 to do a site inspection of the home. And we have some backup plans internally if it's necessitated, but certainly it'd be a better operation for us to be able to put that to a company that is currently doing it in a lot of other municipalities, Verona, West Orange, things like that. And it will expedite the process for those lead safe inspections. As far as the insurance certificate requirement, I'll have to look into it more, but as I understand it, it is that businesses are required to carry insurance. So if you're a business, make sure you're carrying insurance. I'm not sure, I guess we're the repositories for that. And so I'll have to look into that a little bit further. And, you know, obviously everything that Deputy Mayor Saccomanni stated, I'll be looking into.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to address the question regarding the RDP and the unmet need, but actually the deputy mayor said it better than I could have said it myself. So I think he actually nailed it. I don't really have much to add to that. I'm happy to answer anything else that the committee would like me to answer. Otherwise, I don't have any further comments.
The new residents that come into town, do we have something set up?
Well, first and foremost, there's a newcomers club.
Yeah, I was gonna say
In town, that helps people get acclimated to the township. There also was for some time, and I'll address some of, Dr. Kung's questions as well. For some time, there was a welcome packet. I would have to go and look to make sure that it's updated. I think it's something that we can update very quickly and provide on the township website. Certainly, we don't follow between the tax assessor, or whatever transaction takes place in the tax department, we don't then send them a welcome packet when that occurs. But certainly if people go onto the website, something accessible and easy to get would be, I think, beneficial. We do have a public information officer. She has been on maternity leave for the last 6 months. We're anticipating her return shortly in March. So we'll be happy to have her back. Everybody else has been kind of picking up the slack in terms of communication, including myself updating the website, some other people doing the social media posts and things like that. So hopefully we'll see some additional improvement in that area once she's back. So
Not that it's their responsibility, but when I moved to town, admittedly 35 years ago, a lot of that information that Dr. Kung was asking about was provided to us by the realtor.
That's also a way to get it. Yep.
I would assume that still goes on, not that it's their responsibility, but as a good business practice.
No, it's certainly, I think, also part of the idea is that, having a website that's easily searchable for the questions that they have, the ability to find the information that they want is also important. I mean, when you first move to a community, that's where you're gonna go to get that information. To the point of having a concise packet of information, I think is helpful. I mean, we do that in the DPW pamphlet, which I think is very helpful with, garbage zones and street listings by zone and various rules for the township yard and things like that. But I think that's something that we can, first and foremost, just look into and make sure it's up to date. Yeah.
May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.